Thanks for accommodating me. So, group-wise, you've been pre-sorted.
Oh, shit.
So, and it's just to make sure we have a balance of planning commissioners and council members. So,
Absolutely.
Tammy Gilroy, Group 1.
All right. Woo!
Terry
It's
Hansen,
going to be the best team.
Group 2. Steve Jenkins, Group 3. You're in the right spot. Tom Pratt is on his way. Dan Rhines is in Group 2. And where's Mr. B? You're in Group 3. Perfect spot. Planning Commission, Jeff, you're in Group 1. Up here, Brandon Lanyon is in, sorry.
Brandon Gilroy.
Gilroy's in Group 2, Lanyon's in
Oh, you
Group
get
2.
to stay right there.
Noel Bell's in Group 3. Lee's in Group 1.
You got it.
Lee's in Group 1. Actually, you know what, since you're already there, Tim, why don't you come up to Group 1? That way we
No,
can-
you have to stay in group 2.
Yeah, no, group 2's right here.
Group
You're
2.
with us.
Oh,
You're-
we're with us.
You're
You're good.
You guys can be like the disruptive cool kids.
I mean, that seems accurate.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I forgot it.
Is there what?
Yeah.
Yeah, see the little code right there on the corner? You want me to read it to you?
So each group,
9.
okay,
All right.
each group is gonna need a scribe, someone just to write notes.
My handwriting sucks.
And then a spokesperson. It could be the same
I can be
person.
the spokesman. I can't be the spokesman. Okay, you can.
You gonna be the scribe? All right, we're gonna go down.
No, I got terrible. I'm the last person.
Yeah, you don't want Brandon writing any.
I think it's a way to frame slides.
Making a diving catch or,
He inherited his dad's person writing
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
me
horrible.
seriously?
You haven't been arrested yet, so wait.
So who's in charge of the group here? We've got you in charge of.
I'm just taking
Jeff's
notes.
gonna scribe. I can be spokesperson if you want me to. If you love to talk.
Yeah, right
The
on there.
latter
Yeah.
end of your recovery or the beginning end?
Halfway. I still have 5 more weeks.
Sure.
Of PT?
There we go.
I haven't even started PT.
Okay,
All
They
right.
won't let me do it until
so,
second.
to get started, just an overview tonight. I mean, those of you who've been through a master plan and zoning ordinance update before know that it can be like a land war in Asia, okay? And it can take hundreds of years and cost millions of lives. So, one of the best ways I found to do this is get the groups together and talk about, on a high level, what our commonalities are, and stay completely apart from setbacks, specific, businesses or building types, but to just talk about our existing land use and future land use, and really the land uses that we currently have, and some of the land masses that we have that are in various stages of development or not. So that's really the goal for tonight. Again, it's meant to be an interactive exercise with your group. As I said, there's a scribe in each group. We're gonna go through an agenda. I'm gonna ask the groups individual questions. You're gonna have 5 or 10 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on how the discussion is going on the individual topics. And then at the end of each topic, we'll record everybody's responses, and then there'll be a group voting exercise at the end. Okay, sound good?
Yep.
Again, it is a public meeting. I do see a member from the public here. Anything you care to add?
Nope, just here to listen.
Awesome, great, good to see you. So,
Mr. Tree.
yeah. Lord of Trees, I think he was designated. So, I did include a couple things in your packet. One thing I'm not gonna go over this chapter and verse. This is in the existing master plan, and it's our land use types. And not a whole lot has changed as far as like the percentage of developed or undeveloped land over time, maybe a acre here or there. So something to think about as we move through time here for this exercise. And again, as I move forward, as my blood pressure resets from driving just right at the speed limit to get here, if you have any questions, please do ask. It's okay to listen to what your neighbors are talking about as well. So when we talk about, our current master plan, really the questions to ask are we getting what we want in the existing plan, and is there something in the future that we'd like to see? Those are the key points as we move through this, because what'll happen, and I know some of us, and I was a consultant at one time too, we'll get to the point where we're gonna hire a consultant, but if we show up and hire a consultant to help us with the plan, you're gonna get mostly their canned way of doing things in other communities. Why? Because they wanna move efficiently through, they wanna provide a good plan, but it's not gonna be as custom if we don't do our work on the front end. So that's really the idea. And frankly, when we talk about the Williamston Road corridor overlay, we'll kind of get into more of that dynamic as well, because, you know, my suspicion was that was mostly consultant driven. But we'll get into that when the time comes. So the three major themes we want to talk about, pretty simple, right? Residential, commercial, and industrial. Those are the three major use types that we want to sort through. So kind of broken that down into subcategories, target areas. Residential is relatively simple, so that doesn't have any specifics to it. We do want to talk about light industrial versus heavy industrial, I-1 versus I-2 when we get to that segment. And then for commercial, we're really going to focus on the Williamston Road overlay. I mean, there's other available commercial properties. Mostly were developed from a commercial standpoint. There's some property out by the highway, and we'll talk about that as we're being time. So, any questions so far? We're moving along. Okay. So the question number one, and this will be, your heading will be residential development. And this is a yes or no. Is the zoning ordinance meeting our needs for residential development? And if the answer is yes, and you're going to have a chance to discuss it. If the answer is yes, you need to come up with your group with 3 to 4 to 5 bullet points of why it's successful. If your answer is it's not meeting the needs, also in your group, you need to come up with 1 or 2 reasons why it's not, and another 2 or 3 reasons what we should be considering to make changes to make it work better for the community as a whole. So that's the first part. Everybody clear on that? Mm-hmm. Is residential meeting our needs? If it's yes, prove it. And if it's not, explain why and talk how we may make changes in the future. Again, this is independent of, hey, we need to add more accessory dwelling units or cluster development or any of those type of things. It's more at a high level. So it's 10 after 6. So I'll give you about 20 after 6 to discuss. I'm going to run out and bring the bottle of waters I forgot to bring in. So have at it. And remember, feel free to get up. Don't feel like you got to be static there. Sit at the spot.
No.
So we talk about our residential development.
It's 104 hours.
I guess or no?
Where
I think it's
No way.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe that's why.
Yes.
Where do we have
We know that
104?
Williamston is a high value area.
Well, I mean, we had approved, I don't know if we approved the site plan or not, but I know we approved the variance.
And so.
For the
The question is asked about,
And that's
is
back up
our
for sale. But that is
residential planning, residential development, or has the planning commission
I know
in
there's
the
2
past
lots.
said
But
to
that's
rules and
speculative,
regulations
that you
related
can't
to
Yeah, that could be
residential that
2 buildings.
may or may not be
Well, and I know there was a big
I don't know, because I
fight
haven't been
when
involved.
Gary first.
I'm just trying to get a better understanding.
It was,
I think what
the issue is, it was because it's set up for multi.
There, right, so when you take into consideration 104 parcels, you have your Whiting River and Churchill Downs, which
Well, I
at
guess
that both
what I
of
mean
those
by no is,
that
I mean, you look at the map,
vacant
right?
properties.
I feel like, yeah, you might have future properties there.
I think
So, like,
about
the
3
development
years
areas we have
before
left
COVID, they wanted to
are
expand
all
the
commercial.
subdivisions to
We
the
have
north.
resident, where's
You
Lynn
have
Road?
your Little John,
But
Mayfair,
there's several.
Well, to be honest with you, we have a lot.
We have a lot on there.
Yeah.
So,
And then you have that.
Well, I thought on the map, it had like
those plots of land,
only customers at the wastewater properties, and that's
Partner around.
We go.
maybe like this section here.
The Marysville property, we have
Yeah.
several developers.
So I think
And
we,
we
I
also
think.
I guess it's like the yellow, is yellow residential or is yellow commercial?
See, that's also what I was
that's
looking
what
for.
I heard that out there
What?
before the expressway.
But you.
But
find it
yellow
afterwards.
is-
So that is all
Make it
more
affordable.
clustered type, but you know, maybe that's where they.
This over here is yellow, and this is all, this is
So this is
what,
where the answer is yes.
Yeah.
this is all Plymouth Landing over
Yeah.
here.
Look at it,
Um,
that's mixed use.
That's the open area to the side of TSP, or going up to the Baptist church.
No, there's
I don't
not
know,
a way.
maybe it's commercial.
So when John and I have met.
If you drive by the
Oh,
sign, it says-
can I ask for a quick pause?
Oh, sure, oh,
We
we
did
brought
bring
maps.
visual aids, so we do have aerials, which you should really look at, you know, probably for this section more than the zoning maps.
Yep.
And we'll have the zoning maps for the next section.
What's your color code now? You have one of
Yeah,
those?
what's the pink first,
So,
So
Yep.
we're talking, where should you develop?
so when you talk about developed, you've got the,
You are
you've got,
back end up here.
you've
Yeah,
got the
because
back
this
end up
isn't
there.
us.
So,
You've got the back
And
end
this
of
is all
the
commercial,
Cedar
right?
Thing, and
This
then
is all
you've got
commercial.
down along Lynn Road.
I don't know what this is,
Nottingham
that might be
Forest,
residential, but I think this is in here. Yeah, but I think this might be industrial still, the industrial.
Yeah,
area.
that could be mixed residential.
So that's what I'm saying, like, I don't think we have as much as we think we do.
To, south of Nottingham.
Okay, so all the yellows
Like what John
are,
and I talk about too is,
So, I mean, so technically we have, like, up here.
down, you know,
Okay, here's
10
the
houses.
zoning
Oh,
map.
yeah, that helps you
You're,
have
you're
the zoning
looking
element.
at
But this
least
is not big.
125, if not 200 to build it.
see, you
And
have
you're
all
gonna
this
put a
white,
margin on top of it.
R2, 1 and 2 family residential districts, you have here, you have over here.
I'm
Yeah.
Here's the zoning map too, which will help,
Like some of this
as you
over
look
here.
at the area.
Over by our house,
Residential
there's
area.
empty lots that have been for sale.
So
For our
that's,
house.
so
And
that's,
they're all
Can
listed in their
developers come in and
umbrella.
say that
what do you build?
So I guess if the answer is that we have no property, then why, what's the
I don't know
reason?
if we're trying to try.
Orange is multiple dwelling residential. So the orange, you've got that, which
We
is
want to keep the town.
across from Plymouth Landing, kind of behind there, north is like one park,
Yeah.
like what, 4 parcels of that?
Yeah. Right
So I guess if we obviously we have a,
Yeah.
you know,
But
a
again,
desert of available houses, so what, if it's not because we don't have parcels, then what's the problem?
I think part of it is right now, in my opinion, you know, price right now is the developers are, the problem is who owns it? That's what I'm
I mean, that's our problem with the industrial park is.
Yep.
It's owned by a bunch of people that want to.
What if the houses are?
There's that, and, but we're getting, I know a lot of people want multi-unit.
You know where-
Right now, developers are getting, you can get 500 square foot single family house, and people want, I want a 200,000.
So it's
Why gotta buy this? You know, they're not gonna build at a lower
Okay,
end.
so then, what are the problems?
So I think with available land area,
Yeah, I think,
it's just,
I think
getting
what
is
we have,
I'm sure.
I don't think we
Getting
have
developed,
enough
finding
developable area for.
That's-
So our opinion is that it's not
Get
the
back
code,
into my
that's
stuff.
the
Right.
problem.
No, it's not, it's
There's
just,
not,
it's just not, they're not.
Somebody come in and build a.
Yep, and so-
I think we're kind of.
We're about
We're landlocked.
halfway through the discussion, let me just kind of make another couple points. If you do have a technical question about the map, about what's on what, yeah, and again, I'm here, you got any questions, ask me, so it's not like it's a game show and you need to guess the answers. But the questions are, is the zoning, our zoning ordinance and master plan, the way it's currently crafted, is it meeting the residential needs of the community? And if the answer is yes, give 3 to 4 to 5 reasons why you think that's happening. If the answer is no, give 1 or 2 reasons why it's not, and 2 or 3 reasons, or 2 or 3 ways that we can make improvements on a global scale, not on a or micro scale of setbacks and accessory dwelling units and things like that. So that's the
What's
exercise.
the, so simply,
So yes, it does mean people are happy.
is the code, we don't, the code sufficient than the answer?
So John, what is your plan on next house?
It's exterior fourth part.
No, not when it comes to
The height?
residential
No,
buildings.
no, just
I mean, we had
your.
2.
Yeah, I mean, looking at,
What is,
We still have 2.
Overabundance of residential.
And a lot of
There's-
So I wonder,
that's- so
but
that's
I do
really part of the
wonder-
exercise. Like,
plat wise,
there is a
if this is, I mean, maybe, I don't know, I'm not, I don't know much. If it's a problem of like, these parcels are just too big.
correct?
If you look right
And
here,
like
there's
that's
This one
prohibiting
goes by
people
your
from
side by side, they
buying
used to be
like
a
this big
three
lot,
parcel
that big
property,
lot,
and
that
then
big lot,
when they sold, they divided it into the individual three.
So
But like
either way.
this
our
So,
answer
so
is-
John, how are you
Here's
arriving at
brand new, this one's
104
where you-
undeveloped parcels?
That's the current,
So we don't really
Map
have
is
this
104
is
acres.
places to build, but they-
Well, you have 108 acres.
Zone residential?
100,
It's
so you're
hard.
saying 104
Yeah, I mean,
undeveloped
do you
parcels.
feel
So
there's
with our stuff,
Vacant, residential
originally,
vacant
the
parcels.
original.
Yeah, it's
developers
104
built
parcels,
like
108
acres in 3 phases.
So how are you coming up
We
with
got 32 in here.
104?
I'm not, that's dark to 32.
So
I don't know where that number is from.
There's, you could build up.
Because I'm seeing these big massive
About 60
blocks.
But I think blocks of land, but they're not divided.
But, okay,
So it's just hypothetical.
But if you take this and you go for an average, we're at 108 and 104, so your average parcel.
It's there, it's right there, it's there.
What
I agree,
I don't.
but to say that
So
you're at
we said, so our answer is,
And sold a couple
Yeah.
times. and
Yeah.
a new developer came in.
because there's 108 acres available.
Original plan is overall, which is what. I don't think there's anything in there that stopped them from these.
Other than.
Not one. I'm following his order. It was 3 or 4 reasons.
We're now
I think
2
with
years
nobody
ago,
else,
COVID,
we might not
I mean, I don't know.
So I guess the other question is, is it not being developed because of the zoning ordinance, or is it?
So unless that's sold.
See, I don't think so.
But we're not,
We're not
really
developing.
There's
R1, R2 is basic
Well,
zoning.
30 or more.
Well,
I don't think, like he said, when he came in for this.
All right, a couple more minutes.
I don't figure stop
Okay,
there.
yeah.
Right.
And then years ago,
This
when they
is
came in
one
for
or
this,
two houses.
Yep.
I don't know
Yeah.
what
Family, so like.
Yep.
I'm sorry, when I was thinking it was 1 or 2, well, I was thinking that, but the
Right.
multi,
I don't think our
we've
ordinance
only
stopped, I
got
think
that
they
one
were
here.
Yep.
And then when he came in, it was more of a, when he was
Well,
trying to.
I think that's
Again,
very
I don't think it was a, it was not an ordinance.
I think
I don't think our ordinance is not overly
I think,
restricted.
I think
we
our
have
language is
one
fine
brand
when it comes to
for the entire
residential
community.
buildings. I
Because they
think
can do
there's a lot of
PUDs like
outside
mines,
factors. Yep.
mine's a PUD, so they can do.
Well, look, no.
Yeah.
So the
Bottom line is,
planning
so we have.
So instead of doing straight, acre lots or whatever, you can compress it
We
down,
have our
create open
zoning
space, it's a
codes are
common
not
thing across Michigan.
overly
And only this is- So,
But with school.
I mean, we've all been working with that.
and we're seeing development, it's not large.
yeah, well, but people are really, I said we cannot. The only one I know we had restriction down here on Nottingham.
Available,
That's not
one type.
But that was,
Yeah, that's
but that was more of
Yeah,
a
we have
individualized.
Yeah, that had to do with,
Outside garages.
yep, it was the setbacks for the garages, which we took care of.
But that was, yeah, I
Basically,
should
you know,
Available
It
and.
what?
The snow house.
Yeah.
The setback.
They couldn't have, they couldn't
Yeah.
have a protrusion far enough, but again, that was, they got felt, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Do what?
I don't
Okay.
see where we're restricted, so.
30 seconds to get down your last thoughts on
So we have a
paper.
little bit of land.
Make sure you got a spokesperson.
Here, we have some land out here. We're handicapped, we have a couple more spots.
I know.
Right, all right?
Yeah,
So we
right.
should only be able, we should only be expected to come up with 1, 2.5.
But I have such high hopes for you.
We are not overachievers.
If you had given us,
Put the
if you had given
underachievers
us.
at the
You're like
same table.
gritty
And you
underdogs.
handicap.
You're the gritty underdog.
If they're gonna respond,
So like, I know like,
Yeah,
open
it's
up with,
It's all about
this
motivation.
right here is a township.
We all have our motivating
And
factors.
you can see how
I'm
this
not
fits
motivated.
here. This,
Okay,
instead of being this one, he bought this over here.
so let's start
So
with,
he can expand over here.
we'll start with group 3. So first question, is our residential zoning meeting our needs simply yes or no?
No.
No, okay, and so, couple of reasons why it's not. Just your top couple.
Concern about residential.
Well, we're landlocked, we don't have a lot of possibilities.
Okay.
Another option is that the school needs are a big pressure to draw people in.
Okay,
So the option of, because it's school of choice, it limits the number of people we can get into the school system because they're pretty much capped out.
okay,
And we also think that we need to take a real hard look at an inventory and location of actually where the parcels are, and then also do a reevaluation of what could possibly change from cluster to more single. Because I remember out near Lynn Road, it's zoned for more cluster, but they want to look at possible other things.
Good, well done, excellent. Group one,
Group one. Well, we're split. We think that we do meet the needs because obviously when a house goes on the market, it flips fast because people want to live in Williamston, it's desirable. Where we don't meet the needs is we think that developers aren't developing right now on the parcels that are available, and it's financial based. Because it's, it takes a lot of money to build a house, and when you speak about school of choice and people wanting to move here, yes, we have a fantastic school system, however, some of those school of choice families may not be able to afford a $300 home when you look at that.
Yeah.
We were talking about the available parcels, we were talking about Winding River and Churchill Downs, we were talking about the Lynn Road properties, we were talking about Gary Tice's properties. It's not that we don't have available land. It really is gonna depend on that developer, and are they going to want to invest in building those houses, knowing that if I build them, are they really going to come and move in here?
That's what's mysterious to me though, is that, isn't it obvious that people want to be here?
They do, but,
They
like
don't
I
pay
said,
taxes.
But it's
you know,
affordable.
let's say you've
Right,
got
affordable.
kids from Lansing School District, which is a little bit lower income. When you think about it, we are a higher income, which means the price on that brand new house is going to
Half
probably
million dollars.
price them out.
But when a house goes up for sale, no matter where it is, it sells right away.
It does. Well,
Because
with the
of supply
exception,
and
Terry just kind of blew that
There's a couple of them.
out. There's one on Putnam that's been on the market for 8 months. So-
But I think, like, I live down here, so they've talked about expanding the rest of my subdivision since I moved in here in 2001. It's been a financial thing. It has not been a zoning ordinance
No, I think we have good
issue
information.
on why they haven't developed. It's been a financial issue
Yeah.
with the developers. So I don't think our ordinance is saying that they can't develop, it's other factors.
I agree with that, Jeff, and that's what we're, so that's
so,
kind of where we're.
so group one
Yes, we're yes and no.
went straight to the soccer socialist model.
Yep.
Which is what you get when you put two houses, no. I'm just kidding. Let's go with another group with two elected officials. Oh, let's do.
Yeah.
Group two, yes
Group two,
or
let's do
no?
group two, the underdogs.
Yep.
So we said, yes, we do have, our zoning is meeting our residential needs because we have 104 total parcels available, and that's, different zonings, including multi-unit, 1 and 2, residential zoning, plenty of single-family zoning. The land is available there, and we believe that we have a planning commission that's willing to work with developers when they come in. That's not a burden, that our current zoning is sufficient for meeting the residential.
That's what you get when you put all planning commission and ZBA members on a team together. They come at it from the very logical.
Yeah, and we have
Well,
a
yeah, I
great
mean,
planning
look-
chair who does whatever he
Right.
can to help people out, so.
Yeah, we think we have an overabundance of residential property.
But our discussion was basically the same thing, was that we think it's a lot of external factors that have been driving away the developers from coming in here.
But basically, we have the available land to be developed, and now why it's not being developed, there's a lot of reasons for that, but we don't think it falls on the city and our zoning
No.
as to why.
Yeah.
10% of the residential properties are not developed.
Mhm.
10%, so that's not land.
You're thinking that
No.
zoning ordinance changes aren't gonna affect the issue.
Well, I mean, because when we've had development, like Mayor was talking about, when Tice came in to talk about a development, when he needed some variances, but it wasn't a zoning problem that stopped him
No.
ultimately, it
No.
was a money problem.
Yeah, he came in and he went through the process for months. We came to ZBA, and there was actually some pushback at ZBA. It was mostly from another development that was going in the township across the street that didn't want, but he got what he needed, and then he chose on his own
Yeah.
to
Walk
not go
away
through
from
with the
it.
development.
Was that
There's nothing we can do
It was
to-
cost, it was
Yeah,
cost of
outdoor
materials, it was
rock,
cost of
rock,
finance,
sure.
labor,
And I think that's part of our problem too, I think we said is, or someone back here said, we're landlocked, right?
We are.
The township is developing around us in certain spots and they're putting residential,
And
occasional.
the problem with the township is too, is they need to amend their language, because when you sit there and say, oh, your parcels have to be 1 to 5, well, then you're not going to get that many
Right.
builds out there in the township if somebody were to build.
The larger parcels in the township are all past Sherwood Road.
Right.
They're all north of Sherwood. To the south of Sherwood, you have the smaller parcels, that's where you see their subdivisions
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that. So the stuff that's adjacent to town is,
Yep.
you actually see, I think it's like 3 houses that were just built along
Yes.
Zimmer Road in the
Yep.
last
Yep.
6 months.
But what can we change to do something different? Because these same parcels have been vacant for the last, how many years?
Well,
But
right,
what zoning change can we make
We
to
can't
get a
do it,
developer
there's
to-
external factors that are driving that.
So this is, again, you guys, this has been great discussion, and just want to underscore, this is not, and we're not going to have a million work sessions, we're not. We're going to have more opportunities to have that, and it's really frankly, with, it's a council tactical decision on those type of things, and we're having our joint meeting with the township in October
yeah,
18th, so
yeah.
like 3 weeks, right?
Yep.
And so these issues will be discussed again. Then the question is, you know, is it or is it working for us? So what we'll do at the end, and we'll do this for each section, you'll each get a voting dot, and you'll get to vote independently for yes or no on each of the sections. So we're moving on. So
All right.
next up, and this is a two-parter.
Mhm.
First question, this is related to industrial development. I do have big zoning maps, if you want to see those. It's the same info in the small packet, so room isn't perfect for this, I get it, but. So the question is our current zoning for industrial, and we have 2 types of industrial zoning. We have, it's the dark gray and the light gray. Dark gray is I2, which is heavier, which is more traditional manufacturing, like stamping or things like that. And then we have, I'll say it kind of the vein of my existence, I1, because there's been probably 3 or 4 different prospective developments, even since I've been here, that wanted to be here, but could not fit the category of I1, or there were other external factors for them to make a property transaction. So,
Can you
So
give
why,
an
so why didn't
example?
we rezone that?
So,
then?
Yeah.
can you give an example for the light, and I believe it's the Reliable Auto Parts right there on the
Yeah,
other side of Williams
yeah,
Lake,
so
so can you give that, a
Yeah.
couple examples?
absolutely. So with that Reliable Aftermarket, it was a metal, not tubing, it's metal cable type company. It's a heavy industrial use. I mean, they're using high carbide steel blades to cut 12-inch thick steel cables, okay? That's a heavy industrial use. And I'm gonna push back a little bit on that one, because if we were to rezone that area from I1 to I2, there's a very dense residential neighborhood that shares a border with that.
Where is this?
Williamston
Williamston
Lakes
Lakes.
on, right out here,
Yep,
right here.
heading
Yep.
east
On
on
Grand
that.
River as you're headed out of town towards
Yep.
Weatherville.
But for example, that's an example of, you know, do we have enough, or is, the question stands, is our industrial zoning meeting our current needs, yes or no? That's the first question. So let's focus on that
So,
one for about
alright,
6-7
So
minutes.
this is the current progress
This
part
area right
and
here.
where all
Yeah,
of the,
why this is
where the
light
heavy.
industrial.
This right
Because it's
here,
your
when
side,
Cer-
we're
yeah.
talking about, yeah, we're talking about
So
I1.
where Centurion is at, this is
So,
all
I mean,
light.
Secretly,
This is a
This is
problem,
all
in my
I
opinion.
want.
I think we need to, I think we need to
We don't wanna make this one
reassess
right
that.
next to
So,
this
Right.
according to this, we have what, 17
I
open
think we'll
parcels?
be more flexible in this space.
So I guess my thought, I mean,
Well,
obviously,
yeah,
I don't
great
want,
homes,
I
what's
don't
happening
think we
is
want
they're
heavy,
starting to get well,
but
they're starting to
I would have
get a little bit looser.
but I mean, I would have, although there's plumbing, I mean, I guess I would
Builder
have
of
this
the
paint
zoning,
having being a
the
problem,
contractors, it
because
just,
that's
you
a
know.
big
But I
lot.
do think
But again,
that
I mean,
that's
you're
where
right,
we
this is,
need
this is
to
all Granger,
shift.
and they're
If we want, if we want to get this out,
but yeah, like this, but I think these all need to stay.
but I want to hear Jeff's.
No,
I
I,
was very jealous of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at Weberville, I mean, granted, it's all marijuana, and we're not gonna do marijuana here, but
But when
Weberville's
are we
industrial park
seeing,
is full.
since
I,
COVID, most of those places are.
I guess I'm just thinking, because I work in a lot of different communities, and
So is that-
we just helped the city of Cedar Springs get another EDA grant, you probably know what those are.
So-
To enhance their industrial park. Now, one person has come back in the last few years saying, you got an industrial park here, now we wanna build it.
I know.
I think these
It's
industrial parks are
frustrating.
frustrated across the state. The city of Coleman, has enhanced theirs, been there for 20 years. They have one business.
All that time.
Making it more amenable, more attractive for somebody to want to
Fix
come
up the
in.
roads, just infrastructure, and I mean, I just,
This is all
it just, yeah, I mean,
Well, this is,
everything.
this is up this
This is
whole
how
side.
the street.
So that whole
This,
parcel.
yeah, next to
Real
the
parks.
this whole parcel and this whole parcel are what's
What
open.
you think they should, I can't, I don't know how it makes it.
That, I think that's part of the problem, is that, like, this isn't
I mean, there's
developed,
been
so
some great
they have to
discussions.
build all the way in.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said, but really,
Probably coming in.
And I think this whole parcel's one piece.
just like
Is this
ours,
the parcel
one or two businesses
Like,
and nothing.
so this right here
I
is
don't
the old
know.
gas station.
They,
But this whole parcel is one piece.
Fowlerville's had
This
one
parcel
parcel.
I think the problem is.
So they can't buy it, they're not buying the full.
Well, it's not planned, they can divide what they want.
They have available.
So it's really.
So I guess, I would agree we have availability for light. I think we have availability for light, I don't think we have availability for heavy. Because, so like, I don't want our town to be a huge heavy industrial center, but like, if we wanted this to be heavy, or if like, you wanted like this back half to be heavy, like, that'd be cool.
Can it be heavy?
I agree.
I mean, if you make it heavy, then it light
Because that ties in
Yeah. And it's away from residential, it's away from everybody else.
If you want like
And
this
I
half
don't think
over
that
to your,
if you had
closer
heavy
to the
industrial,
highway,
it's not gonna
there's
be any
further
more
away from
noise.
Plymouth
I mean,
Lane.
I don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
that anybody's
GSC
like here
everything.
once
Yeah, and we could, yeah, so like, you'd have a commercial section right here, and then you could have the
So I guess the
industrial
question is,
section.
when we look at your rates, we don't.
Yep.
So-
So I guess our answer is, yes for light industrial, but no for
change one.
potential heavy, because like, our heavy one is landlocked,
And that's not
can't
gonna
get
ever
to
go
it.
further
No.
than
And then everyone else is taking up
Yep.
this
But
whole area.
if we
So
change
if we
it,
change that one, we change
I don't
that.
know, I mean, what can we do to enhance our, we don't have any light industrial really in the city.
The commercial.
We got a couple scattered.
So it's, oh yeah, so like, so right now we have it as, this is office space, which I think is an outdated concept now. So yeah, so like, making both of these mix, which is our probably next question. Yeah. So yeah, so I guess we
But
cut
you're
like,
absolutely.
rezone parts to be heavy. Okay, so for light industrial, yes, and for heavy.
Because somebody, Brandon and I went, yeah, when you look hard enough.
Okay, a couple more minutes on the original question, yes or no, was it meet our
Brandon
needs?
and I were just listening to the news about something else going on in Delta Township.
Yeah, but what is it, a support for Delta?
I don't know,
The
I
Delta
can't remember, I can't remember what it
A
was.
lot of that.
Besides that, they have rail out
I
there,
know
I mean,
they
they
do.
have
I know
access
they
to
do.
two
Yeah.
freeways.
Yep, I know that, I get that.
Hasn't there been 2 or 3 things that said they were going in out there and then fell through in the last year?
I mean,
Does rail make a difference? There is rail.
oh,
It does,
but we don't have.
We don't have a depot.
We
It
does out
don't have a
there.
depot.
Yeah.
We don't
It goes out
have,
there because why?
well, it's just, it's available is what I'm saying,
So it's
so.
available here?
no, we don't
Why is
have,
it available there and not here?
Cause Delta has that. train.
Delta has, it's out by the freeway.
That's where they can get it.
It's, I mean, it's a double track.
We're not allowed to put a spur in?
There's nowhere to put it.
there's nowhere, it's landlocked along
Yeah. And this is
Along the
actually, this is
railway.
actually, this is pretty much developed
there's
though.
there's
So John, I
nowhere
think they threw my
where
phone down.
you
Yeah.
can't put any place for a train to come
Okay.
off and offload its product.
We'll start with,
You don't have that
Group
on
one.
the rail system.
We'll start-
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
start with group one, sure.
Yeah, Terry, rail still matters.
Group one,
So group one, go ahead.
yes or no?
Engineer man.
So,
We rely on
Yeah,
Jeff's
I don't know, I mean,
knowledge.
I just think industrial parks as a whole struggle in Michigan. I don't know how some of them can do better than others. I just experienced that from every community we work at.
Except West Lansing.
Some have them that are full, and some have them just like ours, that there is nothing there or a scattered business. And everybody's zoning is different, and I don't know what, the ones that are full are, what makes them different. I don't know how that's meeting.
So,
Right, I mean,
So
we all
yes or
agree
no?
that our
I know,
we say no, I mean, the only
Yeah.
thing we could do is, we could change the big I-1 light to I-2, and then whatever goes in meets and fits, you
That's all I
know, the definition of it. We can't obviously change the light out here by Williamston Lakes, you're absolutely right about that. Beckham is never going to grow or exceed their space. So really the only thing that we could change would be to take that light and make it.
right there?
Across the street, yeah.
Mhm.
Don't touch that.
So,
That's- sorry, that was
so that would be our
I walked
only,
through.
that would be our only suggestion
Yeah.
is to, switch that I1 to I2.
All right, group two.
So,
Next to the brewery.
we split the baby on this one. We think we have a lot of.
We're socialists now.
We think we have availability for light industrial, but for the heavy industrial, that we don't have much availability. Our largest parcel that's unsold is landlocked and would have to be developed out to. So we thought that there was some opportunity with some of these other parcels to possibly rezone to I2, but we think that I1, there's plenty of available space.
Sufficient.
Yeah. Group three.
We're kind of on the same page. We thought that the industrial park south of town may potentially benefit by becoming I2. But it just depends what comes in, what wants to develop there. We thought that the area over by Williamston Lakes, we generally thought needs to stay light. Do we meet the need? We wouldn't know. You know, you said you had a couple people interested just in the last couple of years that couldn't abide.
And Mayor, what about Leap? What if they've been rounded up and sending towards our way for that area? Anything?
So here's how, and I dropped the ball on this one. The mayor did forward me something. It was a press release for, where was that? Somewhere in the area.
I can go back.
It's about a 30,000 square foot industrial, kind of a mid, not really a heavy industrial use. Leap was involved in that. It's gonna bring 100 jobs or something like that. There are announcements like that all the time from Leap, all the time.
Yep.
Here's the problem. They usually come in about now, and we have until like Thursday afternoon to send them. And partly it's not entirely their fault. We'll put it that way. So I constantly send them, and they have all the information, and they have it in LoopNet, they know what's available, but I'm constantly reminding them, we have these parcels, we have these parcels, we have all this in our industrial park, we have these things available, reliable, still for sale. Even the old frozen food place, which isn't in the city limit, I still send them that one, because if somebody develops that's good for the immediate region. So, the short answer is, and I went through this in my previous community, at some point it's like, no, we need one. We need something to happen here, or we're not, no bueno. So there's no point in spending the money.
Well, I think part of what we also discussed is that besides the heavy industrials, that the problem with our light industrial is Granger. I mean, we saw that when Long Stars was trying to build their facility, because Granger screws everybody over because they want you to rent from them for whatever, or they want you to buy every parcel, and they cut that down so much, it's almost impossible to do it.
Unfortunately, that's baked in the cake at this point.
Yeah.
So is that something, as we're going through this process, we need to remember that, okay, most of our light industrials here, these parcels are what they are, do we need to rezone some of those that we think?
I mean, and this is a grand scheme thing, is that, as I, floated to John, was like, is this a situation where at some point, if the city has cash, we need to buy it back and fix it? I mean, because they're clearly not gonna do it, we've asked them to, and they won't. So, I mean, at some point, if they refuse, do we need to solve it ourselves?
Well, I think then you also run into the fact, Dan, that like what you had suggested is maybe rezoning some of these areas. But then now you're piecing, and somebody owns this piece,
Right.
So are they gonna
No,
want
you're
to
right.
divide it up? And,
So,
so I mean, we're constantly dealing with external factors with all of this stuff. Residential, I1, I2, or, future residential areas. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts involved, and unfortunately, a lot of those moving parts have nothing to do with the city at all.
right. John and I have talked about this too, is there a way to bring in a developer and talk to them about what does your property owner, what do they want to do with this piece of property? We know the 125, if most of you don't know, I mean, we all know that our highway exit has sat vacant for an extremely long time. McKenna did the overlay, brought in all the exits from Brighton to Lansing, what, made up of mixed use and all that type of stuff. The problem with the 125 is it's a family trust. Nobody that we know that those for sale signs have been sitting out there for years and years and years and years. So I suggested, what if we were to meet with those developers and find out what is the problem? What are you guys looking for? What would help you want to, actually sell this? If we could then meet with LEAP, meet with MEDC, which we've done before, met with those representatives, but we are on some of the short lists for site selections. That has happened over the past year and a half. But, at the end of the day, it's where does that person that wants to bring something want to be?
So part of why I wanted to do this tonight is, still being, and I'll never say this after this meeting, I'm still being relatively new in the scheme of, city manager tenure in governments. We've been a government or a city since 1964, so that's a long time. It's identifying these problems instead of engaging a consultant who'll say, oh, well, we in Northville, we zoned it this way, and then, oh, okay, that looks good, No, we have to figure out what it is we want, and that's the other thing, and we're not, remember at the beginning, we're not deciding if parcel X gets developed, or we need 300 new homes, we're not doing that tonight, and that's another tactical discussion for us to have moving on, but really the first thing, because I'm someone, I like to understand why, and that's why I asked you to drive the industrial park. I wanted to know why. It's one of the first things I did. I would drive there at lunch, and I would just kind of sit there and try and figure out, without anybody telling me. That's what you do. City manager life is exciting, right? So figure out why not. So that's part of what we're identifying. So second, thank you. Great discussion. Second part on industrial zoning. And again, this is a hypothetical. Should we consider changing I2 to I1, I1 to I2, or changing I to some other use? Yes, no?
I say no.
Well, part of the exercise.
So you're thinking like this because
Technically,
I think over by Williamston.
Okay,
So this is where.
okay, so, all right, so here's the deal. Yeah, we have to have, I would say no as well. So fine, we change this residential, it sets vacant for another 50 years, because we already have issues with the vacant parcels that we have that are residential. So I say no. I say we,
Was they asking the question?
if we
But I
wanted to
guess
change
what I'm
this
wondering is
to
that if it wouldn't be
all of that,
beneficial to
but I
make
would
this
not say take any of our
commercial and just
industrial
leave the industrial park,
change
the industrial park,
We already have
and make this a
residential
commercial that,
space
because
I-
as we've heard from in
Yeah.
San Antonio, people are bitching all the time that they don't have space downtown
Yep.
to have a shop. I mean, that's close enough that you could still do that. So maybe that's probably the only place that I'm seeing, because, here, we have lots of vacant lots. So clearly,
Right, and the
In
other
front of
district.
What do they got to sell?
Marathon, there's
Sorry,
that,
right.
yeah, the
business district there that's been vacant
I was
forever.
wondering. So this is protected well head over here, but
Say, hey,
these,
listen, we wanna do this
tan areas
commercial
right here behind
enterprise,
Bears Wharf and
but what do you
everything,
guys have available?
those are buildable when you look at your
Well, we got X, Y, and Z, but,
this could be residential, here, this whole
maybe
thing.
something when you want down right here, something like that. So if we're not just hamstring ourselves saying,
That's a age-long
and maybe help you out.
I thought,
That makes
I was actually part of that
because
budget.
then you
From the
still
city
have
side,
the
that got
ability.
built by Rangers.
Yeah.
Then Centurion, all the cities, because we have a couple.
Oh, I know, because it's a beautiful.
Yeah, so we're gonna go talk about,
I think it's easier to
medical
go,
type
I
business.
think it's easier to go lighter.
I thought we had
than
some problem
to go heavier.
Yeah.
Well,
That
now,
means
that's
it's
why I know
commercial.
that I think there's
You're not gonna go back.
Right.
that
That's-
whole
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Yep, I know. So, at the end of the day, no, I would not switch.
moving into residential.
Unless you had the developer at the table that said, I want to build residential out here, on this side of Venture, and I have this acreage over here that I'm asking for this to be,
So you're right, because you.
If I had somebody at the table right now, then yeah, I would say, okay, let's entertain it.
Well, I think that hurts, but it also
Right.
I just think industrial parks as a whole, but I think we were able to do it.
But you know why it is that West Lansing, as you're pointing out, why is it that West Lansing has luck with?
You could, except you've already got the big development
Because it's
buildings.
all
Okay, about one more
You
minute.
go out and you go down,
Yeah, I'll tell you
you
what,
go,
you
you go out,
you get a
Saginaw,
good-
Oakland, and then go down
You
like
get
right
a
to the
solid,
mail.
light industrial.
That's all it is.
It's all it is out
It's
there.
smaller, but it's open.
No, we
You
can't.
got, got all.
No, you're right, all the people who have
It's
signs.
That's your basic industrial. Or, you know, you get
It's just
a,
a,
you get a.
it's, you know, it's, but it's frustrating that they do so well out there. You go out to Price and Canal, on Mount Hope, take drives in there. If you've never been out to that side of Williamston. Yep, yep.
So south.
It's all, it's Amazon, it's Meyer,
You mean
it's
the acreage
Ryder,
enough
it's.
for them?
You know what I'm thinking? I'm also thinking, you know, this is a little,
And here's the reason why people are so enthusiastic for that.
you know, 5, 6 story.
Because the building exists.
Yeah.
They want a regulated building, and unfortunately, you know, you have to live in Amazon, you know.
I guess this is
And
like.
Because it's a DC or something.
this is somewhat mostly though.
It is,
You know, so really, we're talking
We
this.
was wondering if.
These governments have.
Can't get to this.
City
The only way you can get to it, so the red one there, it's, interchange, you know, it's basically, because it does have that road from Marindorf's that could, you know.
The former mayor's ours.
Yeah.
Not gonna do that again.
Formerly known as.
Rainier Ranch, we're
Yeah.
landing.
Let's start with group
Is that what it
two.
was before Mary?
Yeah.
There's a really good one.
So, we think that it's best to keep our industrial zoning the way it is. We did discuss a couple parcels, like the parcel where aftermarket parts was, possibly switching that, but our thought process was that it's easier to go lighter in zoning than it is to switch heavier. So if you switch that from an I-1 to a commercial, and somebody came in and wanted that for industrial use, it's much harder to rezone that. But we have flexibility currently where if somebody came in and wanted it, we could talk about switching it to commercial, but if we did that beforehand, it'd be more difficult to go back.
One thing, that was a great, sucking up to the bosses, that was a great answer, but, one of the challenges that we have, remember, our definitions now are 8 years old, and, you know, lots change in development in 8 years, and when I look at that parcel specifically, the challenge, that would make a great commercial building, but a lot of those commercial uses, they're not allowed in I-1. They're not.
Yep.
So that's one of the things that we gotta rectify moving forward, is making sure there's compatibility and even a little bit more crossover. For example, you can do mini storage in commercial C2 and I2, but you can't do it in I1.
Right.
Like,
So like what we just did on Corwin
that's
Road,
correct.
that would not have been allowable in some of our.
In I1,
In
correct.
I1.
It's not even a special land use, which is, again,
Wow.
those are some of the like Easter eggs that we gotta find as we move through the zoning. So, group 3,
Yeah, I have a question.
yeah.
So do you think that when someone comes in with an idea for something, and they're not sure exactly how it would fit or where to put it, that we're able to work through the process and get it done for them? Or is that something that we're lacking in?
No, I don't think we're lacking in that. I think the challenge is, there's only so many, it's the same parcels come up over and over again, and the restrictions are the zoning that we have.
Yeah.
And we've tried, we did a text amendment for a piece on Grand River, and then the guy left, right?
Yeah.
We just did a rezoning, we did a ZBA, special land use for, other things in town, we've done that. So I don't think it's the process, I think
Okay.
process is good, and I'm always gonna try and get the yes, that's just how I'm built. But there are limitations in, you know, some of the uses being incompatible, and then the future land use, which is, should be the basis of a rezoning. Like if it's zoned I1, but the future land use is C3, that's easy, that's an easy rezoning. But if it's zoned I1 and the future land use is I1, it's more difficult.
Like the last 2 ZBA meetings we've had, we granted the variance and then both those developments fell through for things not related.
Right.
to One residential and one a commercial use.
What are developments looking like in comparable cities? Are they happening?
That's, in comparable cities, that's, so, I'm gonna pull out the bullfighter, take Olay. Every community is so different, and every land situation is so different. There is development happening, I know there was some discussion about industrial. Ingham County, this figure was thrown out, LEAP, is 99% fully leased for industrial. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and that situation is gonna get profoundly, worse from a shortage, but good from a development standpoint with the other things that are coming into the region. So there will be folks looking to do industrial development. Nobody's building office buildings anywhere. It's going the other way. And just on that point, most office leases are in 5 and 10 year cycles. So if you sign a lease in 2019, the 5 years they're still stuck in their office lease. There's going to be a massive glut of office space across the whole world because people work remotely, right?
Yep.
But those leases haven't hit the cycle yet, and then there'll be another one pretty much every year. So 5 years after COVID, so from 2020 to 2024 and on, office is going to tank. So there is development, but again, I will say this too, we're at a point, we're not being picky, but we can be choosy. We don't, we don't need a housing development at any cost. We don't need an industrial building at any cost. I mean, that's why we're going through this exercise, is to make sure that we get it right. Because if we didn't have a lot of land, I wouldn't be as worried, but we have a lot of land. And things can go really right, but things can go really wrong too. So on the question, so yes, you answer the question with a question. So is it yes or is it no? Are you amenable to rezoning or not?
I think we came to we're amenable to rezoning, depending on which parcels they are. But I would like to really take a look at what are the new terms and technologies for the zoning.
Right.
Because if we're using stuff that's 8 years old, it might not fit the bill.
Parking standards is another one too that have significantly changed over time. We're still somewhat, most communities are dealing with a, a Meridian Mall type parking lot situation for parking calcs, and we need to completely revisit that. So, good, okay, that was everyone, right? No, we didn't have, you guys, sorry.
I think we're amenable to changing language, but doing it the right way,
Yes.
knowing that it will benefit us in the future.
Okay, good. So last sort of major subsection, and that is and this will go relatively quick too, because my goal is to try and have everybody out of here by about 7:15-ish. So Williamston Road corridor overlay, and that's pretty much from just past the highway to the industrial park on Williamston Road, which is North Putnam. And there's been, one of our, growth crops out there are NAI real estate signs. This is dotted with them. And again, are we amenable? Is the Williamston Road overlay meeting our needs, yes or no? If it is, explain why. That's a tough sell, because the only thing that, I think Tractor Supply is the only thing that's been built in that corridor in, help me out, long timers, how long has that been?
Forever.
20 years?
Yeah,
Since
20 years.
1840.
I mean, if you look at this,
Next to Shaw's house, though, that was built not too long ago either. I mean, it was
Right.
before that.
because that was the B&G that got built, because Brandon, I think you were on there when
Yep.
they wanted to talk about the screening
Yeah.
for B&G and everything.
Yeah.
There's the two office, I should say one office building and footings that mirror the office building in the Marindorf Park. So that the footings got put in, but no building ever got built.
So again, in our groups, yes or no, and if it's meeting our needs, explain how, and if it's not, tell why, and then offer a couple of suggestions. How we might
Here's
make
what I
it.
can
We
tell you.
changed
Jeff will probably remember too,
that
but
to
we
mixed use,
changed
right
all of
after I
this
came on the
when
council,
Cory was
nothing
here
has
as
happened
city
with
manager,
that.
and nothing has happened.
Right.
We changed zoning language
There's something
we
to tell
did,
you. And
we changed
I'm
zoning
gonna
as to
change
what was
John's
allowable,
point.
what was not allowable.
And
And Cory started in either 17, Cory started in
Professional office.
Cut all the.
I wouldn't cut all of them, but I would say,
years was Cow Valley, and then
I would
Corey
say
Beach.
what-
That's when we changed this language
He's
to
probably
be
sufficient.
I have a
more
suggestion is I
open,
think we should change
friendly
here
to
this
with
week.
whatever we could put out
And
here.
those
And
professional
that's when
officers.
McKenna came in and gave us the overlays of all these other
That's what I'm
highway
thinking.
exits and what was in there, you know,
I mean, 'cause-
mixed use,
I mean, if you, like,
residential.
you go to some of the new developments that are
Yeah.
down there,
We've massaged
the,
this
mixed and
lane.
Yeah,
matched, the
that's
first
not-
floor is their commercial
that's part of the
development, and they have all the
consideration.
spaces
More
on the second and
in
third
In that
floor.
corridor, it's more
So
than
even if you're going
access
two
points.
You know,
stories,
like
so that we're not like creating a
I think
whole
driveways,
wall.
That is a lot.
You
Or
still have
marijuana.
our
Okay, we don't allow
commercial down
marijuana,
here,
we're not gonna allow
above it, or
strippers
should.
out at the highway. Probably the two best businesses, you know, out there right now.
On that street, so-
But
Full
anyways,
strip.
All the way from.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Right.
We don't
I
want,
mean, what is?
All the way
we
down
don't
to,
want,
you have to say,
you know, entertainment.
But again,
Between the mix.
do we go back
Use my
to saying, we're just gonna.
terminology, what's the difference between mix
You know,
and
and-
interchange?
And I don't know how long
We-
it's been.
yeah,
I've
we knew
really-
that they
I
did
remember
it,
when
like
someone
what,
went
like
horse
examples
track
of
out there.
categories that fall.
You know, betting, horse track, all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
an arcade
yeah, go back
lane.
to the whole Aldi
I thought
situation.
Aldi's was like a thing at a time, but
Well,
we
and,
got rid of that.
yeah,
That was,
That-
that
would
was,
be my
that was
suggestion.
like 25 years
It
ago.
does not.
Yeah, that was-
They just want that.
And the reason is, it's just a
So
lot.
big box stores like a TSC type place, is that where you-
Well, TSC's already out here.
It's something like TSC.
You
Same
know,
idea, but different.
but here's the deal, I don't know what you're gonna find because it's on,
So
you know, you got the super Walmart
I'm
down
not sure
in, Fallowville, you've got the, what is
It's
it
not that we
down
have to
in
find it,
Frank?
it's just, are we amenable?
So what,
I think
if,
we
if we're talking about strictly about zoning,
Most urgent.
what do we do in this
I
area?
guess,
We
yeah,
have to change
I guess,
the language to do
what,
that.
what do we want? One of the gateways.
Yeah.
There was talk of making a boulevard going down there.
I've seen it.
Yeah, there's, okay.
So
What do you want that?
I don't know.
Do we want it to
So
be
if
a tractor
you
supply?
Well,
Yeah.
and what we said was, whatever we put out
We gotta
here,
figure out.
we didn't want it to
This is-
detract
this
is
from
the
our
gateway
downtown district.
So what planning talked about, when I first started on planning, when we were looking at this, was doing something like, kind of what I was talking about, is like you have maybe, like this is,
Do I mind the Dollar General?
but this would be kind of like commercial stuff on the first floor, maybe like apartments or on the second floor, and then having some kind of like housing development back here.
Maybe we just word it
So
like.
that way it's not gonna be, oh, you want industrial around it, and that's kind of what the planning has talked about long time.
Yeah.
I would have to look
And
at
I think that,
what
you
we allowed
know,
and what we're
gives
not allowing.
us still a nice corridor coming in, it's not a 5-story or even a 3-story
Yeah, I don't-
building, it's a, you know, a 2-story
Money to be able to split
building,
lots
gives
of-
us some more people
I would
coming
Well, you
up.
have to remember
I mean, yeah,
too,
anytime there's an MSP
you
game,
know, anything
everyone's
that goes
coming
in
off,
here,
and
you
getting
have to
over
look at
here.
it.
So if we, and so, you know, you had a restaurant here, a restaurant here,
Venue.
Yeah.
Do we?
a restaurant here, and
Okay,
then some
so we
storage.
want to
Right
turn
now,
it mega
gas
church.
machine and electric and stuff like that.
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
it is.
gas, electrical,
Um,
water,
Road
sewer,
paper,
all of that.
And even if we were gonna go down the path that you had kind of mentioned before,
I know, right?
if we
Mega
got
church, there's
development
only, you
here,
know,
I'd
maybe Saturday,
rather
Sunday.
the hotel gets pushed back over
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, push the hotel
And-
back over here.
So-
Yes,
Right.
and then, yeah, leave, this is like.
I mean,
gas
here's the deal.
station.
I honestly, I wouldn't mind fast food.
I think,
hours.
yeah, I think they're,
Oh, you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I would,
and we're definitely.
Or gas station.
Yeah. But it needs- I think it needs to be overall.
yeah, I agree.
That's, I mean, we can't accept
You're
it.
talking about.
Yeah, just
I
looks like.
think,
I
it's-
do
I think it's
think
definitely, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely restricting our development of that. Because,
Well, I think that's kind of why we had, when we were talking about it, it was limited to
They were a
the
big proponent
business
of it.
district, was limited to that line. And then behind it was always going to be, continued to be
So
residential,
that's
because they
Shaw's
didn't want
right
it to
there.
spread
So
into
you-
this like obese.
So you've got
thing.
industrial park here.
But if you're gonna draw people off the freeway, we can't put it back here, because they're not gonna circle here.
Yeah,
Right,
Hudson,
that's
it's
the
Hudson.
other.
Yep, so this is
So
all,
if
you
you're
know, this is the
right here,
pharmaceutical, this
you're
is
looking
the
at
school bus
So
area.
I would
you got
say,
City stuff over here.
we
you
all agree
got,
that there has to be
uh,
our currently, but we're not
Yeah.
doing.
Well, I think that we're just good with the mixed use.
Generalized zoning. and
They might have
it's,
bought a
you know,
building
mixed
over there,
use,
maybe.
instead of
But yes.
piecemeal like it is now.
Like, this is
It's all generalized, you know what to expect.
And we're looking
Kind of
for
like
business.
interchanges, kind of like, you know, that and a
Could be
separate,
They're open to the
kind of a separate realm, but, list all this.
So,
Yeah, but our interest is that, we're interested in zoning it so that we can
what the world is that? Why-
Right.
have commercial, we can have businesses come in here that will draw
This is
people
actually
into
agricultural, I think it was written.
our area.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole, well, this whole thing.
But John, a lot of protective of our downtown too, you know.
So we're
we don't
agreed
want-
that-
we
I just think-
want
I think
here,
we're-
we want-
wording-
we want them here, ultimately.
I think we gotta look at it again.
Town.
Yeah, again.
But I think that's part of the problem.
I think we look at
There's
it
nothing
and
like
But I guess we.
pulling
How about we
in,
just
and so if we can, that's why it's like, we can get this to extend,
Right,
then
right.
you can get it closer, but like right now.
Maybe before I was
It's-
here.
it's- Yep, no,
I was
it's-
at
it's
a-
a development,
Yeah.
but
You have to have
It
underlying,
is the last.
yeah, you have to have some, I guess we can do some of
Yeah.
this,
like how does
So does that mean that
look
there's some,
when you get
will
off
there
the
be
highway?
actually some?
It's
interest?
like, I want
people
this.
for-
Yeah.
we thought there was interest in it when
There
we
was
said,
a
okay,
business
we will allow
huge
this,
component of
this,
this.
this.
The-
But now
What's the difference?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but they did, hoping that it would create it. That was the whole thing.
Well, I know, like,
We-
What's the real difference? I mean,
We've had,
C1 is more general, drive
in the time
like
that we
the
changed
traditional
language,
farm.
we had maybe 2 or 3 site visits.
Correct.
You change
And
your thought.
C3 is the central
Yeah.
business district.
But
C4 is the
for
area
whatever
way
reason.
out.
Yeah, I mean,
I
but
remember
looks
too,
wise, I
these are all
mean,
privately
that's all
owned
on us
parcels.
and our zoning.
We can
Yeah,
get
so
into
we can
zoning.
dedicate, say like, you know, if
If
you're
it
building here, this is what we
doesn't
want it to
meet
look like.
Like,
And
we could say like,
expectations
not
of
people
the
or
Yeah.
it needs
So-
to.
it has to have
So,
some
you know,
that brick
That's
facade,
why
like,
I
looks like that, yeah.
suggest
We can
John,
say,
let's meet with these realtors
Yeah,
and find
no,
out,
you
are
want
these
it
people
done?
really
Yeah,
interested in
rewrite,
selling,
rewrite.
you know,
Okay, we about ready?
Yeah.
to
last
help
one.
them sell it.
In the
I
zoning.
kind of
Yeah.
like the idea of not.
Let's start with group 1 this time. So, yeah, the fundamental question.
Yes.
Williamston Road overlay, is it meeting the needs of the community, yes or no?
No,
Okay, why, and why not?
I think we need to look at our zoning language, from when we changed it 5 years ago, and reevaluate it. Maybe there's something else we need to do to make us more attractive.
Be a little more open.
Group 2.
So,
Oh,
Tammy,
go
you
ahead.
think that C2 is too restrictive then?
I think that whatever we did back then has not helped us.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't disagree, but.
Yep. So I just think we need to look at it again, and what are we allowing, what are we not allowing, and maybe on the what we're not allowing, be a little bit
Consider-
more,
Yeah,
be a little bit more open.
yeah, see who comes in and then look at it and say yes, no, whatever at that point.
Yep.
So, like, hold that, and I want to hear from the other 2 groups, and
Yep.
I've got a couple of comments on the overlay. Group 2.
So, we think that it's not specifically it's not meeting the needs specifically with the blue parcels here with the professional office district stuff. We think it would probably be better as a mixed use, but that we would need to write in our zoning out there a way to, that's the gateway into town, and for kind of rewriting the zoning, how we want that to look, how we want it to feel as it comes in, because that's and find a way to also, we need it to try and pull people in from the highway downtown, but at the same time, keep the feel that we have.
We think, we
Don't
think
stop
all,
them from going down.
we think all
Right.
the professional and C2 should just be rezoned C3.
And C3 needs to be, the language needs to be amended to
Yeah.
update
Yeah.
what we want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would
What- I'm sorry, what is
100% agree with
C3
it.
We don't know, that's why we want to rewrite it.
Or retail or.
C3 is mixed business.
It'd just be all mixed, so you could, yeah.
Yep, I would 100% agree with that.
And that might meet some of the residential needs as well. I mean, you could do, you know,
Commercial.
retail on the bottom or commercial on the bottom and
Yep.
residential on top, something like that. So I think it opens things up a little bit better.
Group 3.
And I would say ditto on that, but is there any restrictions since that's a specific dedicated road, to make different modifications?
Mm-mm.
No, because it's ours. I mean, you just gotta stay clear of the, MDOT's got pretty pretty deep reach off the ramp, it's like 300 feet, but off that, I mean, it's our road and our street, and we're only limited by our creativity.
And you know, I mean, I really kind of like what he just said. I don't want to turn into an East Lansing Frandor, where you've got the monstrosities of those apartment buildings with the mixed use. However, look at our apartment building that is in between River House and Brent's. Everybody thought that was gonna be an eyesore, and people just criticized this to no end. What is this big tall thing?
Yeah, but then it
Well-
turns into a tunnel, that's no.
No, and you don't want the tunnel, but I do like the idea of the retail and then the, you know, of whatever on top.
Well, we can, that, to me, that's the key, is when we talk about changing some of the language, it's, you know, and that's all the details, and Johnson will get into all that later, but to me, that's the key to that whole district.
Yep.
But we do like the C4, we did agree that we like the C4 the way it is, so
Yep.
it's just the C2 and the.
Yep.
This might be too specific, but I remember, I read the thing, and there's this bike path thing. So some number of feet off, you have to have the 12-foot wide bike path going into town and so forth. I think that'd be a good thing to remove. I mean, it'd be nice to have that, but if I was a developer, I'd look at that and I'd say, well, no, I don't like that, especially if I want to put in something retail or light office.
So, did you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah,
Pretty
I
much.
wanted to make a comment, because when I was on council before, there was a general consensus all around that we didn't want Okemos Road.
Right.
Right.
And I perceive that that's still the same goal.
That's what we were talking
Yep.
about too.
Yeah, we just made that same.
Yeah.
And that's
We have to find like a harmonious balance of what to go out there.
Yeah, but I mean, and without diving into the details, that's not the point here, but that's why we caveated changing it onto the definition needs to get amended, because we can put in there.
Broad scope.
Well, we can put in there, you know, what things we're not looking for to go in there, like we're not looking for 8 McDonald's to show up.
Right.
We're not looking for it to look like Okemos Road, like
Yeah.
we want it to match the feel of downtown, so like those are things we can put in, and so I think that's, you know, that was kind of our point.
And we wanted to enhance it downtown.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, you don't want them to stop right off the highway, you want them to continue to come into downtown.
So
Can
can
you
we be
think of a place that
progressive
looks
and
like that?
active at the same time? I mean, is that
Sure.
gonna attract developers?
What?
I said, can we be progressive and
Yes.
selective at the same
Yes.
time?
Yes.
And
I think
attract-
you can be.
I think so.
I think we can be.
So we've the good news is we've completed the majority of the exercise tonight. We got one last thing that we gotta do. But just on the corridor overlay, and this is from sitting with two different perspective business folks, the corridor, and I assume, you know, there was a lot of thought put into that. There was a lot of like energy behind it because it got adopted.
Yep.
But did you know that there's 300 feet between driveways? That's mandatory in that corridor. Did you know that? 300 feet, which makes it very, very difficult to develop anything. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Did you know that overlay calls for the circulation to be behind the buildings?
Yep.
You knew that.
I remember that.
Can you see a problem
With
with
the bike
that?
lane in
Yep.
front of
Yep.
it.
Yeah, with Plymouth Landing, you have a neighborhood that's there now, and
Yep.
so, the other thing, that, the speed limits there, they're 25.
Mhm.
They're 35 down to 25 pretty quick, so, and again, I'm not trying to write the master plan or correct the ordinance, but that's why I added this one, because, you know, all signs point to, it fit the time that, and that's why you update your master plan every 5 years, things do change pretty quickly, but not a lot's happened there. I'm not saying that's good or bad, it just hasn't happened. And when we talk about, like, can you make it look, if you're more concerned about what it looks like than what goes there, you can do that. I mean, that's form-based code, that's the essence of form-based code. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but then you're less concerned that, you know, and again, we don't want, you've been to Sedona and seen the McDonald's in Sedona. I mean, we don't need an Adobe McDonald's. We don't want that.
Or deja vu.
But you can, like, again, yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that Victorian Omar's, yeah, so,
No,
so anyway.
Just the pop place.
right, so there are, as we get into this more, you can, and again, you can be progressive, hey, this is good zoning, and we can be selective, and the other thing you can do, you can't say, you know, you know, we like Meijer but not Target. We like
Right.
Walmart but not Sam's Club, you know, this thing, you can't do that. But what you can do in your zoning tools is you just have it zoned, we have areas for that.
Yeah.
But you have size in the building size that really keeps it to more of a private type or you know, a non-chain type development, so.
Yep.
Well, I think that is an advantage if you know, uniform the zone to that, then we can start rewriting that.
Yep.
In the
How about if
zoning-
we
in
find
the
an
zoning
exchange that we like, and we find out what their zoning is, we should make our zoning look the same as that? Is there an
Trying to think
exchange
of one
between here and
that's-
Detroit that we like?
I can't think of one that's
I
not
can't either.
developed with
I was gonna say that
Walmarts and
Maybe
Right.
we're looking
Can't
for some
either.
sort of a unicorn or
Yep.
something, in which case,
There, it doesn't
maybe
exist.
it's not unsurprising that it doesn't develop.
I think that's kind of gonna be a very unique thing to our community and something that we're gonna have to develop by the whole class, to be honest with you.
Well, I guess
Which
my-
I think
my
there's
concern
advantages to
there-
that, because then you get what you want.
My concern there is what businesses are out looking for those development opportunities currently.
I wish we had that answer.
Yeah, so that's
I
the,
can't think of it.
Well,
That's
that's-
the problem.
well, that's the balancing act, is I don't think, I think, you know, we said it here, we don't want it to be Okemos Road, but if you look at the way the overlay's written, I mean, look at Tractor Supply. That's what you can do. You can put a bunch of parking around a national chain store. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I mean, all of you get to decide that. You know, I have my own opinions, and I'd happily share those, like, in private, and in public when the time's appropriate.
Right.
But that's really the, you know, kind of the balancing act, right, is like, are what we're doing is complementary to what we have, so. So that's it kind of for the group exercise. There's one last thing we're gonna do, everybody gets 4 dots. But before we vote, there's a couple things that I wanna cover. And these are, and we're not gonna have an exercise of this, but these are just general code and other ordinance things that we need to think about as we move through in time. First on my list is garage and rummage sales.
Yes,
So
yes,
I do
yes.
not want to be the garage, like, you know, police, garage sale police, however, we have, there's a need for that here.
I love garage sales.
And like, I know,
I
I do too.
I don't like perpetual garage sales behind a certain ice cream place.
Well,
Oh.
Last week out of Georgia.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah, well, we just went there for ice cream and they were actually cleaning out.
Well, I saved it to the end.
yeah.
My passion's about this one.
I think that garage.
It's called Golden
Yes.
Treasure.
The guy next to the ice cream place is getting out of that.
Every weekend.
Oh, darn, my heart's broken.
So-
He runs it as a store.
I know
This
it's
is a-
retail yard, so I
This
don't
is
know
a
that.
longer view issue, even probably maybe even spanning this update, is short and long-term rentals.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
We don't have as much concern for short-term rentals currently, but we will.
Yep.
And again, you just have to make
Short-term, like
sure.
Airbnb or?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
thought we've already addressed that. Didn't we address that a couple of years ago?
I don't remember.
I thought we did.
So,
I don't remember that.
you brought it up, so I'm gonna dive in here for a second. With the long-term rentals, Love Street,
Yep.
which was a nightmare
Yep.
for years. Is this the time with the zoning and the master plan, is this where we try to address things like that with, or is that a different
rental
process?
inspections.
So that kind of
That's what I
goes,
was thinking.
yeah, that kind of, yes and no. I mean, and the no part is, that ended up resolving, and partly because we stayed on the property of the owner, not the lesser, because he's, that was, yeah, so we stayed on them, you know, we're not over aggressive or high-handed.
No.
But, we just something to be mindful of. Is that something that's important to us as a group? And if it is, there's literally hundreds of model ordinances,
Gotcha.
and there's one that will fit us if we choose that. This is gonna be a little bit different one, this has come up a couple different times, beekeeping. You don't have to react to it, I will tell you, I came from a beekeeping community, and I'm happy to say that, you know, the bees all did fine, and, you know, you have to have appropriate, like, it's like chickens. You know,
Yeah,
chickens is not a
language.
gateway species, doesn't be chickens and ducks.
I know,
and
I
donkeys.
can too.
That's what we discussed at the meeting.
I love it.
I know we
Definition
discussed
of-
Airbnb when Corey was here. I think we
I
did.
thought
It had something, to do- yeah, you're absolutely right, and you'll have to have Holly do a search through our
Yeah.
meeting, notes and stuff, but yes, Airbnb came up because I remember Tim Perone
Yeah,
it had something to do with language and what's allowed, what's
Yeah.
not allowed.
yeah.
What's,
I don't know.
what defines a short-term rental as compared to a long-term rental?
You get to pick. That's the bottom line, is you need to define what that is.
Tammy, I think it related around doing things around MSU football games and stuff too. I think
It
that-
might have,
Because
it might
people were
have,
coming in and renting,
Yep.
and then parking and using the parking lot as a drop-off spot.
yeah.
So the upshot is, if we wanna delve into that, I mean, usually it's the lake communities or the coastal communities in Michigan where it's a bigger issue, because towns our size are, people are buying those and then they're renting them, and so their rental percent overall is like, was up, trending up of 50% of the whole community. And that's not good.
I could see it affecting our community as far as that goes, short-term rental, as far as the Airbnb for a weekend or something, because, I mean, you go to downtown East Lansing for a state game or something, those are $600 a night.
We do have a couple, because Rachel had looked before on Airbnb,
Yep.
and seen a couple in town.
I would like us to look at the whole rentals, because I have 2 rentals that are right next door to me, that, they serve as a primary residence, but I know that there's potential for them to become rentals if the primary resident decides to move out.
Right.
So I do think that that's something we wanna look at, and as far as making sure that we have accurate records of what are rentals. There was a rental that was on Putnam where, and this was back when I was a reserve officer, there was a family living in the upper portion of the rental and the bottom portion was a grow. And we have to be mindful of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's something that should be on our radar, and something that will come up either as part of the zoning ordinance. It really should be part of that, but also there's some, the actual, if we get into the permitting or inspection side, that would be, part of general code stuff. So.
Yep.
Anything else that anybody can think of, general code off the top of your head? Yes.
I didn't get the thing about the garage sale. I didn't get, what was the summary on that? I think I know what we're talking about. What is our
So,
proposed action?
we currently, you can have one every day of the week if you want.
Right.
365 days a year.
And then it's a
probably
fine line.
not desirable.
Well, it's a fine line between saying, is it a home occupation business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it is, that's good if they declare that, because then there's limitations in the ordinance for that.
Okay.
Limited outdoor sales can only be a certain percent of your gross,
So I guess, what is the question that you are bringing to this group about garage sales?
that we need to have something in the general code that not necessarily licensed, but gives us some level
Linda
of,
said something.
policing power to keep someone from having.
Are
a
you
permit
asking if
garage
we
sale.
agree with that, or are you just,
I'm not asking now, but I'm just telling you it's gonna be presented.
it's gonna be, okay.
Something we need to discuss.
We're gonna
Something on
talk
your
about
radar.
it at some point.
Yep,
All right, thank you.
yep.
So be ready.
Because again, one thing I know the Kiwanians, which I'm part of, every year does a big one to raise
Sure.
money for.
Yeah,
and we
down
do
in
it at DFW.
DW's parking lot.
Right, and we always
And
get
that's
the visit.
fine,
That's great.
and that's fine, and I don't
think
Once a
mind,
year.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about is the 365.
Yeah.
No, the one behind the ice cream.
And in the
Yeah.
treasurer.
yeah, yes.
Yeah, we're not talking about
It's not hidden anymore.
the
It's not
neighborhood,
nothing.
the neighborhood spring and fall.
Right, yeah, when you have a subdivision,
Correct.
garage sale weekend.
Yep.
That's one thing, but to have it,
Well, anyway,
yeah.
So,
another time.
just a little bit more, process-wise, at some point, and again, we'll settle all this information and we'll distill it and share it with the group. At some point, we will be moving through the selection process for a planning consultant. And I'm sensitive to the most recent provider, and that's all I'll say. And I know lots of different planning consulting firms, and there's plenty of good ones, and so we'll go through that process. This won't be, I don't view this as a full update or full rewrite. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, and that's why we focus on the high-level things. So once we do that, excuse me, we'll have another work session, joint work session. I haven't ruled out having another one before the consulting. We will have a public engagement tool with an online survey. The park survey closed today. We got 218 responses,
Nice.
which was really
That's
good.
great.
Okay.
And then, as part of the master plan update, there's the draft plan, public hearings, there's a lot of steps for that. So, appreciate everybody hanging in there. Sorry for being a minute late, so.
We have fewer dots.
Yeah, so with the dots, you get 4 dots. We had 4 different questions that we asked. So you got 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 on one sheet. You can put all your dots on one, and that's like, if your most important issue is that the industrial zoning is not doing what we think, then put all 4 of your dots here. You don't have to, you can put 1 on each page or put 4 on one. But you
And
get
what
4
are the
dots.
questions?
The ones that
So,
we answered.
the questions that we went through,
Yeah.
residential zoning, yes or no?
Barb did a good job of
Industrial
bringing it up
zoning,
there.
yes or no?
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
reading the questions, it's the same ones we've already done.
Correct.
Harry.
Oh,
Good man.
I got to taste the rainbow.
Yeah,
I got-
over here.
The sky is blue.
You know, Michigan colors.
Yeah. You know what though? Considering everything that's happening right now with my green and white people, it makes me loyal to
Yeah,
that.
and your coat.
Why are you voting no? You guys are voting right down the line.
Yeah.
You're voting in between, yes or no?
No, you didn't say we had to vote, you just said put it with one, right?
He's gonna say
John's
going up there, I'm calling in tomorrow.
So, for whatever reason,
I'm not taking a stand on it.
For whatever reason, it's because it was Beauchamp.
So we're kind of just waiting.
Those boys all grew
We're
up
kind of like a
around
puppy
here.
kid. We never.
Even though, and the shoes right here.
So,
Yeah, those
yeah, we'd
kids
be a little
are
worried about
like
getting
true
It
blue
would
and
pass like our
gold.
last dog we got when he was like, he was a big German Shepherd already.
I'm not a, I
Yeah,
don't.
when I graduated from there, I graduated
We don't want to
from
do
college.
that.
I
I got the end of it.
Wow, well, your house
That's
might
our
for sure.
most
Well,
important.
no, my daughter graduated.
Nice job writing down
From graduated from
Everything, I
Sarah.
deeply.
Yeah, yeah.
He got his master's in there.
Yeah.
One thing, we
I
got
just
9 family members from the state.
I didn't like you, them just because of how much my brother and his little.
Yeah, I'd like to see the overall.
Yeah.
I sure would like to see.
Katie sent me a video.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not in
We've all
the business
started.
of real estate.
Phone around, no.
You know,
That was our,
sometimes
the
the
planning, that was our first conversation.
I mean, they'll come up with you an answer.
They give her like.
Something's gotta happen. Can we squeeze them? Is there a way to squeeze them?
No,
No, I'm serious.
Sure.
I'm serious. That's the city, they're all for it.
Hey, I just wanted to just mention everybody watches a lot of Sopranos.
That's
When he
right.
says, can we squeeze them?
What's their address again?
The thing with the residential and the school of choice and whatnot, when it comes to the schools, a lot of these schools, I know it's put
Oh, yeah.
forward by the
Yeah.
schools, that if we had more
Oh, you didn't get
residential
some?
available, all these people.
I think you had some on your station.
There's some right there.
But we
Oh.
have, yeah, he says it all the time, multiple times.
So that was a meeting I was invited to before this, and I said I won't show up. and you didn't-
Oh,
There's a lot of things, there's a lot of.
That
There's
crazy.
a.
They're so fun.
Families are last name.
Oh, Julie,
She's like Michigan Mortgage Association.
she's on the
Yeah.
school
She
board.
was
She's a
reasonable,
few
but
months
it's
behind
like,
the baby.
this is a bigger
Baby's
issue
going over
than,
and she's
I mean,
not.
we have about
She's
100.
not crawling yet,
Oh,
but just
that's
trying
right.
to get
You
it
went to
set
that
out for
meeting.
it.
I did.
Well,
We can talk about it Friday.
I'll be very honest, I know a lot of school choice folks.
Yeah, we're at-
And I don't
Bye,
know a
Brandon.
single one of them that wants
Their
to
daughter
move to town.
is,
I don't know a single, that's
On the
like,
other
I'm
side,
just
her
waiting for,
daughter,
I'm just
11
waiting for the right, no, they're
A
like,
month and a half ago,
I would much
watch
prefer
us.
paying my property taxes and bring my kids to
stop
school.
looking now. and-
That's where they're at.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
So he watches closing.
John
Peter's
personal
restaurant on Thursday,
experience.
Friday. He has two
Well, we're
small
talking about the big babies.
There's daughter baby doing it, and she can tell she's still dating, so it's kind of fun. Yeah.
We moved.
Me, like,
We rented it first.
Yeah.
You know, the
Tammy?
real estate market. When we moved,
Yeah,
real estate
so-
market.
Tammy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
John, are we done with her?
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay.